Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Madam and Mr. Chairman. As we all already know, many people move to the US because for many reasons, right? For example, Asian immigrants in the move to United States to escape war. Some of them to escape the economic chaos. They come to United States to find peace and new opportunities for them, ladies and gentlemen. And the United States government allowed them to live in the United States because they believe it is the act to protect human rights of the global society, right? And there are illegal, and as illegal permanent residents in the United States, they have the right to permanently live in the United States and also has the right to work in the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Permanent legal residents here are protected under the law of the United States and all local jurisdiction. In addition, permanent legal residents are protected and maintain rights as given by this Constitution, including due process of law and equal protection under the law, ladies and gentlemen. However, as we all already know, Asian immigrants or Asian globally have different cultures with American, right? Some of them are Muslims, Chinese, Japanese, and from many other Asian countries, and they want to protect their culture, and they also want to live in a well-known society before they can later adapt in a different society, because as I already said before, they have different culture once again. And ethnic enclave is a way, ladies and gentlemen, to adapt in the new environment, and by having ethnic enclaves neighborhood, it's a way for the government or the United States government to provide a place for them to adapt. Therefore, we as the upcoming government will support the motion as a first-generation immigrant parent of color in a predominantly white country would choose to live and raise children in an ethnic enclave. I will be arguing three main points. As the first generation immigrant parent of color, they want to avoid culture shock because they just move in and they have different cultures, right? Second, they want their child to grow in a high characteristic of nature's culture identity, just like them. Third, they also want to avoid racism because they are different with the white people or American. And my partners later will discuss about how living in ethnic enclave society can help them to jumpstart their economy in a new place. We also want the opposition team to prove to us how raising children in non-ethnic enclave society will not change the children's perspective of the culture identity and will not be bullied, and they will not be bullied because they are different. Going to the first, as a first-generation immigrant parent of color, they want to avoid culture shock. As I already said before, the United States and Asia has different cultures, right? Americans are liberal and free. How they dress and how they act is very different with Asian people. And for example, immigrants from South Asia, majority of Muslims would find it difficult to adjust to the environment because the culture is very different. In their countries, they have to wear a proper or polite clothes, and in the United States, people wear what they want to wear. And it's their rights to wear what they want to wear, right? And they also, immigrants from South Asian also find it difficult to find halal food for themselves in the United States if they don't live in ethnic enclave neighborhood, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, by living in ethnic enclave neighborhood, they can adapt first because they just move in, so they can adapt in a neighborhood where they can find some people like them, right? Second, they want their children to grow in a high characteristic of native culture identity because Asian, once again, has different culture with American. Asian mostly eat rice, and they mostly respect other people, older people. For example, Chinese children have to respect their parents. Their parents was like like their boss, and in the United States, parents are like like children's best friend, and the parents of course want their children to inherit the same characteristic of their native culture, and they are very afraid that the children will be affected by the US culture, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, For example, you can find it in Ip Man, where the children who were born and grew up in U.S. society are not being respectful to to her parents, because because she feels like her parents is being too overprotective to her. Therefore, of course, parents want their children to grow up in the same characteristic of native culture identity areas, so that their children will inherit the same characteristic, the same moral identity like them. Lastly, they also want to avoid racism because they feel different. And as we already know, there are still many Americans who are racist, whether in school or in workplace. For example, how Americans react to Asian when the corona outbreak hit the United States, right? They blame Asian for bringing the coronavirus to America when it's actually it's not correct, right? And how Americans react to our Muslim friends after 9/11 where they said that our Muslim friends is terrorists and not belong in the United States. Therefore, as an Asian parents, we want to avoid the racism and begin to live in a well-known society. We want to feel safe and secure, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we believe by living in an ethnic enclave society, our children and we can adapt first without losing our native culture identity, and we also can avoid racism, and we can also avoid disadvantages because we can live in somehow our well-known environment. That's all from me, and thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As the Deputy Prime Minister this morning, I would like to straighten out the saying that it is okay to raise your children in an ethnic enclave society. Just like my Prime Minister said before, that it is to preserve our ethnical identity and to avoid racism from other major races such as the white people and many other races. What I want to say here about avoiding racism is I don't want to put a blame in racism that we Chinese or other races migrates to a certain new country such as United States. They tend to go towards the ethnic enclave society. I don't want to blame racism to that, but it is just to protect for the sake of our cultural identity, just to protect our kids. We don't want our kids to feel different than the other kids in the neighborhood. We want to protect them as safe as we could. We don't want them to feel different. We want them to feel same. That's why ethnic enclave society is such a good place for our kids to grow, because they see the same kids. They are from the same culture. They are from the same race. And therefore, ethnic society is the best option for us, first generation immigrant, to raise our kids. And they will become the second generation of our family that has a wider view of multiple cultures, and they can understand a new culture better, and they can become a better person with a higher culture tolerance and can appreciate different cultures much better altogether than a person who only lived in a one culture area. That is about how to avoid racism. That's why ethnic enclave society is the best option for us to raise our kids. So, other than protecting our kids from racism in an urban or rural area filled with white people living in an ethnic enclave society can also help to jumpstart your economy. Why? Because when we first arrived, imagine this, when we first arrived in a foreign country, in this case, the United States, we have zero to none contact in that country. And we, as a young immigrant, we don't know what to do, what to start with our life there, and how to make some money. We cannot jumpstart anything. Meeting someone that is already established there is a very good start. They're usually part of a community, which we can say a part of an ethnic enclave society. Joining that community, meeting many established people, it can also help you to establish yourself in a brand new country that you don't know anything about how to live there. And other than joining a community, it is also better to move. It is also a better move than moving in by yourself without the help from the established people. You might risk isolation from your new neighborhood because of your race and even your culture. We all know that white culture is very different from many Asian cultures, especially the Chinese culture, which white culture tend to be more free, and meanwhile for Asian cultures, they tend to be more strict, and you might see them as weird, but those white people see you as weird. Not you are seeing them weird, but you are outnumbered. They're seeing you as a weird guy or with weird person. So you might risk isolation if you are doing all of this by yourself, not meeting many community members from ethnic enclave society. So ethnic enclaved places help you avoid those kind of interaction, those kind of situation where you might be isolated from your neighbors. Speaking about establishing your economy, ethnic enclave neighborhood can provide you a cheap housing, or even a community member can save you a few bucks by allowing you to live with them for a few days before you can find a reliable and a cheap housing. Because ethnic enclave neighborhood usually provide a cheap housing prices, a reliable housing price, and you can get them as a little money as possible. After you can find a proper housing with support from your community friends, and you can find a job where from their contacts, or even if they have a business there, you can work there and get a proper income. And now compare that if you don't move in a community places with people from the same race. Imagine that you will find yourself hard to find jobs, money, and housing. You don't have friends. If you live in a enclave community, ethnic enclave community, you will find many friends because they're the same race as yours. They're from the same cultures as you. You will find the sense of brotherhood because of your living in the same area, because you're from the same background. Most likely you will find their culture not weird at all. You will easily relate to them because you're from the same background as well. And that is a good thing for your kids. If you're living in an ethnic enclave society, you will likely to be able to jumpstart your economy from meeting new contacts and get new jobs easily from your established contact. After that, you can establish yourself into the community and into the new country that you're living in. So, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, would you put your kids' future at risk by avoiding ethnic enclave environment? You won't be able to jumpstart your economy if you're moving on your own. You will lose your chance to establish contacts with people who are already established in that country. And you might even risk isolation if you don't go into an ethnic enclave society because you're different from them. So, who is still saying ethnic enclave society is a bad place now? Good morning and thank you.